Welcome to our countdown of the most notable U.S. presidents and their major achievements. From the very first breath of a newly formed nation to the complexities of a global superpower, these individuals have steered the course of history. Let's dive into the annals of the past and see how these leaders, through their actions and decisions, shaped the nation we know today. And so we begin with the very first, George Washington. Faced with the daunting task of leading a fledgling nation, Washington established the very foundations of the U.S. government. He understood that his actions would lay the groundwork for those who came after, and with meticulous care, he formed the cabinet, a body of advisors who would guide the executive branch. Perhaps most importantly, he chose to step down after 2 terms, setting a precedent for a peaceful transfer of power that would define the American presidency for over a century. Thomas Jefferson, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, oversaw a period of dramatic expansion. His masterstroke, the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, doubled the size of the United States, adding vast territories west of the Mississippi River. This monumental acquisition set the stage for America's westward expansion, a defining theme in its history. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Jefferson commissioned the Lewis and Clark Expedition, a perilous journey into the uncharted wilderness of the newly acquired lands. Their discoveries and encounters with Native American tribes would shape the understanding of this vast and diverse continent. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, guided the nation through its darkest hour, the Civil War. Faced with the secession of southern states, Lincoln held firm to his belief that the Union was indissoluble. A gifted orator, Lincoln rallied the nation with his powerful speeches, reminding all of the ideals of liberty and equality upon which the nation was founded. His Emancipation Proclamation, issued in 1863, declared the freedom of slaves in Confederate territories, marking a turning point in the war and in the struggle for racial equality in America. Chapter 4. Theodore Roosevelt, the trustbuster and conservationist. Theodore Roosevelt, often remembered for his boundless energy and charisma, ushered in the progressive era. He took on powerful monopolies, earning the moniker trustbuster, and championed the rights of the working class. A passionate outdoorsman, Roosevelt understood the importance of preserving America's natural beauty. He established national parks, forests, and monuments, ensuring that future generations could enjoy the nation's natural heritage. His vision extended beyond U.S. borders with the construction of the Panama Canal, a monumental feat of engineering that revolutionized global trade and cemented America's status as a world power. Chapter 5. Franklin D. Roosevelt, A New Deal for a Nation in Crisis. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, often referred to as FDR, faced unprecedented challenges. The Great Depression gripped the nation. Roosevelt responded with the New Deal, providing relief, recovery, and reform. From creating jobs to establishing Social Security, FDR reshaped government. During World War II, FDR's leadership guided the Allies to victory. Chapter 6. Harry S. Truman, The Weight of War and Peace. Harry S. Truman assumed the presidency after FDR's death and faced the task of ending World War II. Authorizing atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki brought a swift end to the conflict. Truman's Marshall Plan helped rebuild Europe and prevent communism's spread. His presidency marked the start of the Cold War. Chapter 7. Dwight D. Eisenhower, Interstate Highways and the Cold War. Dwight D. Eisenhower, a revered World War II general, brought his military experience to the presidency. Recognizing the need for a modern transportation system, he championed the construction of the Interstate Highway System, a network of high-speed roads that connected the nation and fueled economic growth. The Cold War continued to dominate the global stage, and Eisenhower navigated this tense period with a steady hand. He embraced a policy of nuclear deterrence, believing that a strong military and the threat of retaliation were the best deterrents against Soviet aggression. Chapter 8. John F. Kennedy, A New Frontier. Kennedy's presidency was tragically cut short, but his vision left an indelible mark. He challenged Americans to reach for the stars, famously declaring, "We choose to go to the moon." The space race defined his presidency, inspiring generations of scientists and engineers. Chapter 9. Lyndon B. Johnson, The Great Society and Civil Rights. Lyndon B. Johnson, often overshadowed by his predecessor, was a master legislator who used his political skills to enact sweeping social reforms. His Great Society programs aimed to combat poverty, reduce racial inequality, and improve access to education and health care. Landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 dismantled segregation and removed barriers to voting for African Americans. Johnson's legacy is complex, however, as his escalation of the Vietnam War divided the nation and sparked widespread protests. Chapter 10. Richard Nixon, Détente and Environmentalism. Nixon initiated détente with the Soviet Union, easing Cold War tensions. His visit to China in 1972 opened relations with the communist nation. Domestically, Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency. His presidency ended with the Watergate scandal. Chapter 11. Ronald Reagan, The End of the Cold War. Ronald Reagan, a former Hollywood actor, brought a sense of optimism and renewed patriotism to the White House. His economic policies, known as Reaganomics, emphasized tax cuts and deregulation, aiming to stimulate economic growth. Reagan's strong stance against the Soviet Union and his commitment to building up the U.S. military are credited with contributing to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. His famous call to Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall, referring to the Berlin Wall, became a rallying cry for freedom and democracy. Chapter 12. Bill Clinton, Peace and Prosperity. Bill Clinton presided over a period of sustained economic growth and relative peace. His economic policies focused on deficit reduction, free trade, and investments in education and technology. The North American Free Trade Agreement, signed into law by Clinton, created a free trade zone between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Clinton also appointed more women and minorities to his cabinet than any previous president, promoting diversity and inclusion in government. George W. Bush, 9/11s, and the War on Terror. George W. Bush's presidency was forever shaped by the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. In the aftermath of the attacks, Bush launched the global war on terror, invading Afghanistan to topple the Taliban regime, which had harbored al-Qaeda, the terrorist group responsible for 9/11s. Bush also authorized the invasion of Iraq in 2003, based on the belief that Saddam Hussein's regime possessed weapons of mass destruction, which were never found. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq proved to be long and costly, both in terms of human life and financial resources. Barack Obama, Hope and Change. Barack Obama made history as the first African-American president of the United States. His election was seen by many as a symbol of progress and a sign of changing racial attitudes in America. Obama signed the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, into law, expanding health insurance coverage to millions of Americans. He also oversaw the operation that led to the killing of Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda. Obama's presidency was marked by a spirit of hope and a commitment to diplomacy and multilateralism in foreign policy. Donald Trump, Disruption and Division. Donald Trump's presidency was one of the most unconventional and divisive in American history. His populist message resonated with many Americans who felt left behind. Trump's policies focused on economic nationalism and immigration restriction. His presidency was marked by constant controversy and a deep partisan divide. Joe Biden, a return to normalcy. Joe Biden assumed the presidency in the midst of a global pandemic and a deeply divided nation. His presidency has been marked by efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, address climate change, and restore America's global standing. Biden signed the American Rescue Plan into law, providing economic relief to Americans struggling during the pandemic. He also rejoined the Paris Agreement on climate change and reversed many of Trump's immigration policies. Biden's presidency has been challenged by the chaotic withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and the ongoing war in Ukraine. The legacy of leadership. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the achievements of some of the most influential U.S. presidents. From the founding fathers to the present day, these leaders have faced unique challenges and left their mark on the nation and the world. Their decisions, both triumphs and failures, continue to shape the course of history. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more historical insights.